This is a Friedtanzer from Awards Radar, and I'm very excited to be speaking with Holland Taylor about The Morning Show. How are you, Holland?
I'm great. Thank you so much.
Of course, thanks for being here. What did you know about the character of Sybil when you signed on to The Morning Show?
Well, I thought at first she was going to be a typical part that I get, which is just a powerful woman, sort of generic and not defined. And I misjudged the creators of that show because they had very specific things in mind. And she turned out to be more multidimensional than many that I've been offered to play, and really, really challenging, really interesting because she has really obvious strengths and then this thin streak of brittle delicacy inside that can just make her fall apart you know, like a kid's puzzle. So it was really wonderful to play.
I like that analogy, the kid's puzzle. So, in early on in season three, there's a very memorable scene where she has to go on air and confront something that she said. What is it like to play a moment of discomfort like that?
Well, it was really uncomfortable because there's so many meanings. I mean, we have come to an age where people really cannot speak carelessly. And, you know, we excuse ourselves many things because we were just chatting over coffee or we were just schmoozing on the street for I wasn't really thinking, you can't say I wasn't really thinking. I wasn't really paying attention in this day and age in a conscious, some people would use the term disparagingly, woke America. And so the actress, had my own sensitivities to the situation. I was playing with an actress who was a person of color. And she, of course, had an enormous personal response to what she was playing, which was a person of color who's been basically sort of indirectly insulted and who's under a lot of pressure at work. And so it was extremely powerful. I and she were both very nervous as actresses, or we were caring deeply to get it right. And so there was a certain amount of anxiety and, a sort of a febrile quality to the whole scene. It was really something to play and exhausting. We had to do from different angles and many times. And everybody on that soundstage of the television show was equally attentive. I had, guys from the crew like the next week say, that scene that you did, man, we were all like just riveted. I had, it was really amazing. So it was a rare kind of occurrence that happened. So it meant a lot to me. It was really something to do. But two like ad libs that I did during it made it to the cut because like as I'm being helped up onto the platform seating area of the interview by a PA whom I've reached out to. I I myself felt my own anxiety about the approaching scene and my nervous hand holding hers. And I have arthritis in my left hand, and I remember it like twinged, and I said, "Oh God Almighty!" And then under your breath you can ad lib things, and I didn't really think anything of it. And then leaving the thing just as I was exiting the studio, I said something like, "Oh, that was a crash," and it was appropriate for the scene, so we kept it in. More information you maybe need.
Oh, I was going to ask, I was curious if there is any sort of improv on the show, because it's obviously this isn't a comedy. I assume that things stick pretty close to the script, but it sounds like there is
Oh,
some
no,
ad-libbing.
the idea is to stay very close to the script. Sometimes in rehearsal, you come up with something, and Mimi, leader, who was showrunner last year and directed this year, would say, "No, that's good. Do it that way. That's good." So, all of us make the occasional adjustment that stays in because it works better or it contributes something. But I generally try to learn it quite exactly.
One of your most frequent scene partners is Billy Crudup. What can you say
Oh,
about working with him?
well, he's pretty much always my scene partner. He is so generous, and I don't know that I can even. Sometimes I think it is too good to be true. Is he inwardly just thinking, "Oh, this woman is such a tedious"? She makes so many mistakes. But when I first came on the show, it was always just such a mouth. The first day I did that scene with him, I had this humongous big speech that goes all around the barn. And I had to do it any number of times. And he was so, he said, I'm right with you. I'm right with you. Just pick up where you stop, start again. I'm right with you. He's the most wonderful guy besides being a devastating good actor. He's amazing. One time when he was, one time as his character talking to Sybil, when he's really the greatest danger to her, he was off camera, but he winked at me. And it was so shocking. It made me murderously angry. So it, helped me very much with the scene, which is what he was trying to do.
Well, besides Nicole and Billy, is there anyone else that you were excited to share scenes with over the course of this show?
I worked with Jennifer in episode 3 a couple of times, so I hadn't all this time, and she was always so welcoming. When I came to do the show, she sort of would be aware of days that I was going to be there, and she'd say, "Hi, how are you doing? Do you need anything? So happy you're here with us." Jennifer is a great girl, which you will hear Sarah say as well. She just is a great girl, beginning and end. Great.
Nice. And have you heard any public, reaction from just fans or people that you know about Sybil and how they feel about her character?
Well, that scene, I mean, that scene that you mentioned, and this third season, when you really see a more complex view of this character, people were, I mean, I was just amazed. People on the street identified it by the season and sometimes by that scene. And uh, on social media, a lot of people, posted about that scene or posted on morning shows, post about that scene. And it caused tremendous controversy and tremendous interest. And that was really, really remarkable to see, not typical. You don't usually see television performances identified so exactly.
You worry that people identify you and think that you are Sybil and therefore share her
I don't
viewpoints
think
and
so.
everything?
I think people are so much more sophisticated these days about acting. And in fact, I remember a lot of people talking about Nicole Bahari, and of course, it's magnificent in the scene, and it's very personally difficult to play, I'm sure, because of the overlap of her own reality and her character's reality on television, working for a corporate entity. Um, and, people commented a lot to Nicole how great she was in the scene. And then other people would chime in and say, but, Holland Taylor gave as good as she got. Holland Taylor was really great in making that scene exposed, and I think there's real sophistication now in audiences about what is acting and what is the character of the actor. So I think very few people think that I'm like Sybil. First of all, I have a history of so many other parts they've seen me play over the, I don't know, 70-year
I do want to talk about some of those other parts, and I'd love to start with a film that I saw you in this year, which is Quiz Lady.
career. It was fun to do that the same year I did this fabulous psychiatrist on Billions and Sybil on the morning show and what's her name, Quiz Lady. I forgot her name, which doesn't say much. Anyway, that is a character I have very, very rarely played. I can think of one movie in which I played another extremely mundane, cranky, just, such an average person of just no distinction at all. And just grumpy and cranky and difficult and bad tempered. And it was amazing to play those three all in the same period of time. It really makes you feel, I mean, acting is such an amazing and strange profession that it's hard to even describe. I mean, you're inside yourself, you're outside yourself, you're thinking your own thoughts while you're thinking the character's thoughts. Is all intertwined. Obviously, it's all going on at the same time. and full of mystery. But to play three very different characters at the same time is really great. It makes you realize what a skill you have. You really have a skill. It's developed over decades and decades.
I also really enjoyed a show that I think is over. I never heard much more about it, which is The Chair, which it wasn't officially canceled, but it was a really, really great show.
That 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 was a real breakthrough for me on television because that's where I played a character that I've never played before. And a lot of people were, first of all, they loved the show. The show was a big success on Netflix. And it took place in academia. And I played a professor who's fallen far short of her young ambitions. And she's fallen short partly because she was a woman and taken advantage of to a degree by people who wanted her to do the womanly chores of life. And she didn't get her full professorship and she didn't publish after her first book. And, these things sound sort of ridiculous, except for her, they were sort of earth shattering, soul defining events. And she's really kind of a wreck of a creature. And it was wonderful to play her, an intellectual.
I really like that
So
show, and I enjoyed watching Lucky Hank this past year because I felt like that was a sort of sequel, like a similar kind of thing. If we're not going to get more of The Chair, at least we got some more of that academia world.
it's fun. It is a very special world if you've ever been in it. You sure do recognize it. It's got so many uh, social media comments from people in academia about it, about how I was just like a professor of this, I was just like them. It was great. Fun.
Well, I think the first thing that I probably saw you in when I was much younger was Two and a Half Men, which is we're talking about everything you do is just
That's
so
relatively
different.
recent. Come on. It's relatively
Well,
recent.
I started off watching comedies before I got into the more serious films, you know. But how do you associate yourself with that show? Do you have positive memories of that series?
I do. Well, first of all, Charlie and Alan were just a delight to work with, really, really a delight. And the material was so funny. It's much funnier in retrospect, even because sometimes you're playing a character like that. She's self-centered and self-absorbed, and it's you're playing something for comedy, but uh, she wasn't my favorite person, but you can't react that way. I mean, it was wonderful. Chuck Lorre is a great sitcom writer, truly probably the greatest, and it was a marvelous experience. I didn't re-up in that show. Usually, if you do a series and it runs the 6 years, then after that is when people really get paid something. And I actually didn't re-up. I became a guest artist after that because I was working on my play about Ann Richards, and so I wanted to devote myself to that. So, but it was a great history with that show. Charlie
Also,
is Charlie is Charlie makes acting like himself look easy, whereas in fact it's quite hard.
that's interesting. You've also had so many other roles, shows like Hollywood, The L Word, The Practice. Do you have other real highlights from your career that you like thinking back to?
Well, Hollywood was a wonderful part, and it was sort of that speaking in that plummy voice of the 40s Hollywood, sort of vaguely English sounding, plummy, rich, uh, luscious tones and luscious language, darling, and it's so wonderful to see you. All of that kind of thing was great fun to play because I grew up with the movies where people sounded like that, and you learned your behavior from movies. A lot of people, and so you learned to be like that. That was very luscious to play that part, and also to work with Patty Lupone and Jim Parsons. It was just a lovely experience altogether. And the chair you mentioned, something else. Oh, the practice. The practice that I actually got an Emmy for the practice, playing this very smart judge in one of David Kelly's many brilliant projects. And Roberta Kittlestone was an extremely capable judge who also had kind of a racy personal life. And that combination, only Kelly came up with something. And that was a gift to me because it was really kind of groundbreaking. on television. It was very successful. So it kind of put me on the map in a new way. I mean, I've been playing sort of powerful, and in a way that I personally am not. I play a lot of strong women, but this is the first time I got to play a sexy and an intellectual at the same time. She's a judge, so that was a gas, and yeah, that was wonderful. I'd play that part again.
Is there any role that people never ask you about that you wish you could talk about more than people had seen?
No, I've had very good luck in playing like the teacher in Legally Blonde. People love that character. I love that character too. No, the people ask me about the characters that I love. I don't think anything's ever been really ignored, which is great for me. I've had really, really phenomenal luck in doing projects that were successful and well, often viewed by many. I think Mr. Mercedes was the one that didn't get adequate attention because it was sort of lost in the beginning of streaming, and it was on a network that doesn't exist anymore. And that was opposite Brendan Gleeson, brilliant Irish actor. And that was also written by David Kelly, but it didn't get the kind of viewership it deserved. The one thing that I wish, yeah, there is a part actually, Powers That Be, the part of The Senator's Wife in The Powers That Be by No, which was a Norman Lear show. For some reason, that has never found its way to Comedy Central or any of the channels. And I don't know whether it's been suppressed in some way, or if Norman himself didn't want it seen. It was one of the few, one of the only things he ever did that wasn't a commercial success, and I think it wasn't because the network didn't know what to do with it. It was a brilliantly funny show, but it was a satire. It was very sophisticated, and it had a great cast: Peter MacNicol, Robin Bartlett, Elizabeth Berridge, David Hyde Pierce, a bunch of other ones, Eve Gordon. And that was a very witty, satirical, loved play. So I'm really lucky. Of course, my favorite role of all time is Anne Richards in my own play called Anne. But that is filmed, actually. That is about to be back on PBS Passport and under great performances. That was really that was my achievement of my life.
Wonderful. There's so much to talk about, and I really appreciate you just taking a few minutes to speak with me, and can't wait to see what you do next.
Well, you're very kind, Dave. Thank you very much. I hope your holiday season continues to be fun and lovely.
You too. Thank you.